I want to give some headline messages from the Uppsala report. To speak first of CEC as a network of centric church organisation. It's important to understand that the Uppsala report does not seek to correct existing strategic and institutional shortcomings. Rather, it reimagines what it means to be a fellowship of churches in a Europe that has changed and is continuing to change at an accelerated pace. It seeks to revise CEC for the future rather than correcting issues from the past. It is, in that sense, it is forward-looking. Rather than applying a sticking plaster to past deficiencies, the Uppsala report challenges you to equip CEC with the necessary vision and mission, strategic capacity and organisational structure to engage with and help shape the Europe of tomorrow. The reason we have written the rough guide is to give some context for the role and work of a renewed CEC and to affirm why change is necessary. In other words, we are seeking to create one holistic organisation. And so, in so doing, the Uppsala report invites member churches, invites you all to see CEC as a flexible and inclusive network rather than a static hub. It suggests ways in which CEC can release the energy of its member churches out into the world rather than trapping and consuming it with heavy and cumbersome governance, structures and management processes. It calls for an organisation that is responsive to all the member churches, uses the expertise in all member churches, and is able to be flexible in its ways of working and a catalyst for new partnerships and new possibilities. Therefore, effective two-way communication with the CEC membership, whoever you decide can be members, will be essential if this is to be achieved. We stress that what we are proposing is a new way of being and working. Coherence and simplicity is therefore a significant theme. Central to the Uppsala report is the premise that the current lack of clarity as to why CEC exists is reflective of a deeper problem, namely the lack of strategic capacity within the organisation. And so the report makes the case that CEC needs coherence and simplicity in its governance and management structures that can give it predictability and transparency in its decision-making processes. As a result, the report makes a clear and firm distinction between that which is necessary for the good governance of CEC and that which is necessary for the good management of CEC. And it proposes models of best practice for each. It is for this reason that the report advocates the disbanding of the Commission governance and management structures. They have served CEC well in the past, but the revision working group does not believe that they are the way to go in the future. If each component part of the reconfigured CEC delivers on its specific remit, then CEC has a good opportunity to work as one body rather than the 3 or 4 separate bodies that it currently seems to be. Its willingness to be one body in which trust is a paramount value will in itself be a sign of Christian hope for the future of Europe, a sign of God's grace being at work amongst us, an outworking of what José Manuel Barroso, President of the European Union, spoke of at the Ecumenical Assembly in Sibiu of unity in reconciled diversity. Bridge building, reconciliation and learning need to be at the heart of CEC. So to representation. If CEC is to release the energy of its member churches out into the world, then it is necessary to reimagine our understanding of representation and participation. The report accepts that CEC's governing structures need to be representative of its wider constituency. but it makes the case that it is as important that the governing structures have the necessary expertise to help guide the organisation forward. We do believe what is proposed is a model that includes all the smaller churches. The report invites member churches to look at ways in which those elected to the governing board are capable of promoting the welfare and best interests of all member churches, rather than just their own narrow denominational interest. To be willing to act on each other's behalf is an important sign of mutual trust and affection. But participating in the life and work of CEC does not necessarily mean being represented on CEC's governing board. That would not be possible. To participate in the life of CEC is to help advance the vision and mission of the organisation through its programmatic research and development and through its engagement with the European Union and pan-European institutions. On this basis, it is a model for smaller churches to maximise your involvement. At its heart, however, the question of representation is a matter of trust. Whether we trust those that we elect to look after CEC's common good, and whether those elected are willing so to do. Trust is an essential quality in this process. So to collaboration. Working as a flexible network requires a collaborative methodology. The report makes the case that only when member churches work collaboratively will they be able to develop the necessary social and theological capital and knowledge to resolve common problems that impact on our shared future. No church, however large, can afford to go it alone. Even if it thinks it can, in the light of what is laid out in the report about CEC's vision and mission, it should resist from doing so. It should seek the active collaboration of other member churches. Collaborative working is necessary to ensure that all member churches feel that they have a stake in CEC and their voice is being heard. If it is accepted that theological reflection, socio-ethical questions, engaging with the European institutions and advocacy all belong together, then we need to move beyond the silos of the existing commission structures and staff portfolios into more flexible and collaborative arrangements of management and staffing, with the majority of staff being under one roof. Effective communication, both personal, at a staff level and with the CEC membership, will be an essential tool and skill. Only when we work in collaboration with others, whether it is with CEC or CCEE or other civil society actors, will CEC be able to effect the change that it desires. I now have a headline that talks about avoiding elephant traps. An interesting English metaphor. Let's just explore for a moment a few of these elephant traps that CEC has suffered from in the past and maybe is doing so at the moment. Google Art is very good at supplying elephants. Do you always go it alone? Or does the large ignore the small, or simply expect them to follow? Is this fighting or collaborating? Too many agendas to juggle? And finally, unity in reconciled diversity? relationships between strategic framework and organisational model, and over the course of the next few days you'll be looking at 5 different statements that together provide a coherent strategic framework for the future. You will also be looking at a new organisational model for KEC to deliver this framework. And it's important that these 2 elements are brought into conversation with one another. They are 2 sides of the same coin. The strategic framework provides you with a roadmap as to where you want KEC to travel. But the organisational model is the engine that will drive KEC along the road. If in your discussions you set KEC an ambitious journey and then equip it with a second-hand and worn-out engine that is not roadworthy, then don't be surprised if KEC finds itself broken down on the hard shoulder of the motorway, waiting repair while others speed by. Be realistic as to what you want KEC to do. Similarly, don't give KEC a challenging remit equipped with a quality engine if all you can afford is a second-hand car. Be aware that since the Assembly last met, there has been significant shrinkage in the KEC staff, which is unlikely to be reversed. Whatever you agree here in Budapest has to be affordable. Affordable not only today, but in 5, 10, 15 years' time when the payments are still being made. Be realistic as to how much you are prepared to pay. So to consistency within the strands. Even when discussing the different strands of the report, it is important to think through how the different elements hold together. The mission statement needs to be consistent with the vision statement, and the remit of the Secretariat needs to be aligned with both. And the whole organisation needs to own a single values statement. If you increase the size of the Assembly, think through how this might impact on how often the Assembly can meet, and what less frequent meetings might mean in terms of setting strategic objectives. Be alert to the fact that if you increase the size of the governing board, costs of meetings. I alluded earlier to models of best practice. As a revision working group, we found the best way to grapple with these problems was to remember what constitutes models of best practice. So before you decide on KEC's vision statement, ask yourself whether what you have negotiated is clear and unambiguous. Does it provide a clear and vivid picture, a description of a bright future? Does it inspire and energize you, or does it leave you feeling flat and confused? Ask yourself, is there really need to have a preamble clause to the vision statement when there is already the fully worked out statement of faith? Similarly, when looking at KEC's mission statement, ask yourself the question, does it define the fundamental purpose of KEC? Does it accurately describe why you want KEC to exist and what KEC will do to achieve its vision? And be alert to the dangers of writing into the mission statement the divisions of the past, or being so specific in terms of working mechanisms that KEC lacks the space to grow organically. Keep in mind that the mission statement is not the place to list the strategic objectives, let alone the partners it should work with. Similarly, be careful when looking at the remit of the Secretariat that you don't specify particular areas of programmatic research and development. Such steps might provide you with a comfort blanket now in helping to imagine the link between the old and the new KEC, but in a few years' time they might look somewhat dated. We repeat that staying flexible is a key attribute to be pursued. Your efforts must withstand the passage of time. Use the Policy Reference Group's report as a reference point rather than the Constitution. And when looking at KEC's governing board, ask yourself the question, what is the optimum size that KEC needs and can afford? When addressing the question of balance on the governing board, ask yourself the question, what kind of balance and why? What will its effect be? In achieving one balance, will another be skewed? And if you change the remit of the governing board, consider how those changes might impact on the management of KEC. If nothing else, please respect the boundaries between governance and management. So for the past few years, the revision working group has been grappling with these same questions, and our answers are now set out for your consideration in the Uppsala report. We know it's not perfect. It is not a sacred text. It can be improved upon, and we hope this Assembly will do just that. But be aware of Assembly fever and the law of unintended consequences. So the revision group is happy to help offer its advice over the next few days, but ultimately it's up to you, the member churches, that have to decide. And we hope that this presentation has helped to draw out some of the key underlying features and questions of the Uppsala report, while also equipping you to avoid some of the elephant traps that you will encounter over the coming days. And the questions and answer that now follow, we are very happy to answer. Yes, they look very happy. We are very happy to answer your questions on any aspect of the Uppsala report. Moderator, on behalf of the Revision Working Group, I present this report to the General Assembly. We present this report to the General Assembly for consideration, debate and eventual vote.
Thank you very much.
Let us pray for God's continuing guidance and inspiration through these days of discussion and decision.
Thank you. Thank you. With so informative a presentation, it would be easy to think that the exercise thus far has been simple. I suggest that a phenomenal amount of voluntary work